What is going on, guys? Edged Mindset here. We're taking a look at a winner, a straight stone cold winner of a knife. This is the RR3 from Knife Standards. This one was relatively new released. I actually pre-ordered this one a number of months ago, and it came in last week, and it is a killer knife, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So, Knife Standards. He's one of the YouTube knife designer maker type stories, right? So he's got a YouTube channel where he does reviews like me, but then he also launched his own brand that is made overseas for some of his knife designs. Now I picked up the RR2, I think, RR2. You can look back on my videos. I did some content on that one. I liked it. I didn't absolutely love it. It was kind of big. I didn't totally love the blade shape, and it was a little bit awkward. This one fixes all of that. This is actually really surprised how much I like this knife, to the point where do we start? Where do we start? This is a solid knife design. So if you're at all attracted, so if you don't watch this whole video, if you're all attracted to what you're seeing here, if this kind of gets the juices going a little bit, rest assured, nothing in this video is going to make you go, oh, I'm glad I didn't jump on that, right? I have only really good things to say about this. There's a few things I can nitpick, and of course, there's a lot of things that come down to personal preference and things like that. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get a weight on here. We are looking at 4.3 ounces, so not too bad for a full titanium knife that is on the larger-ish side. You can see it compared to a paramilitary 2, pivot to pivot, P to P. Very similar, little bit smaller, which is kind of nice. Very good size. Let's do width. If you compare the width here, and I know, this is relatively representative of a standard paramilitary 2, even though it's got the copper scales on there. You can see how it is a little on the wider side, right? It is a little wider than like a paramilitary 2. It is not what I would consider to be a thin boy. However, it's nice and slim in the handle, because you can see, compared to the paramilitary 2, again, you can see how much wider this is. So when you're talking about taking up space in your pocket, yeah, it's a little bit thicker, just barely, but way slimmer, way slimmer. So overall, very good carry here. Let's start with the blade. Vanax steel, baby. Vanax is awesome, and it is premium, and it is expensive. And so being able, relatively, right, compared to other steels, being able to get that on a knife like this is outstanding. See right there, Vanax 3. This is number 23. Go Michael Jordan, right? That's his number. I don't know. I'm not a sports ball guy, so if I'm wrong on that, how embarrassing, right? I'm sure people will correct me in the comments. In fact, maybe I should have said it was Charles Barkley instead, and then I would have got lots of comments calling me an idiot, which would boost the algorithm for my video. Yeah, maybe that's a tactic I can do. Wow, I'm going off on a tangent right here. Beautiful blade. Full flat grind, like literally all the way to the top. You can see right there on that edge, all the way to the top. I hate how my light catches all the, it makes it look so dirty. It's not dirty, it's clean. This knife is clean. I haven't done anything with it. It's just the light is just really capturing. There we go. You can see those beautiful grind lines. Awesome. Thumb stud action deployment method right there. It does have the 2 screws on both sides. Little nitpick. It would have been nice if the show side was clean and it only screwed in on this side. But, not a big deal. Super slicey, thin behind the edge. Really great blade shape. You've got a little bit of belly up here, and then it's nice and flat right there. Good for all around work with a nice thick tip so that you don't have to worry about breaking it. So it's kind of a cool balance with slicey and cutty without being too delicate. So in my mind, really good for EDC, right? You can get really strong on the slicey side, but then if you're trying to use your knife to do anything outside of slicing, you can run into trouble. You can chip it, you can break it, you can snap that tip off. So this gives you a lot of options in terms of how you want to use this knife. We got jimping that runs really far up, so you've got lots of options here. I could argue maybe it'd be nice to run it a little bit higher, but once again, super nitpicky. It would be kind of cool if it actually ran all the way past that ATR right there, just so you could get up a little bit higher. Not that it's really needed, because when you're up this high, you've got such a good, strong purchase, and you've got opposing forces pulling back, pushing down. You're not really going to slip off, and it doesn't have a crown spine or anything to make it slippery. You know, it's nice and flat, but yeah, it would be kind of cool to have that run up there. Primary method, like I mentioned, is thumb stud deployment, and it reverse flicks and thumb flicks perfectly. The thumb studs are sized just right so that they're not sticking out and getting caught on your pocket, but you can get to them very, very well. It's got kind of the stepped thing going on the top here, so it's not a complete flat or rounded. So really, really good purchase, and it front flips very, very well as well. Very well also. It also front flips extremely well without being an obvious like over-the-top front flipper. And that's because this jimping is nice and grippy, so you can get up there and front flip this thing like a beast, even in these stupid gloves I'm wearing, which if you want to know why I'm wearing gloves, somebody will answer that question down in the comments, because I know some of you know. It's a little bit of a mystery if you don't, but some of you definitely know why I'm wearing gloves. Great front flipper. Great action, running on bearings, nice and drop shutty. Overall, just really nice on the blade and the action. Moving down, we've got a custom pivot right there with the RR signature in there. And then on the back is where you can actually use the tool to undo it. Very nice, beautiful show side. Love that square pivot. It just adds a little design flair to it, and then it echoes into this inlay, which is just executed so well visually. There's a couple different inlay options. I forget what the others are. This one is the one that caught my eye. It's the Arctic fat carbon fiber. Overall, the inlay's done very, very well. There's no ledges that I can feel. It's done very nice. You can see maybe the slightest gap on some of the corners. That would be the only kind of gripe, and it's pretty consistent on most of the corners. This one looks really, really good. But some of the corners, you know, there's a little bit of a gap. Really the worst one, actually, that looks really good on the back. Looks really good on the back. Really, it's just kind of, I think this one right there, that's the only one that's a little bit like, eesh. And so I think it's just, you know, it's luck of the draw, depending on the machining. You might get one that has pretty much perfect corners all around, or you might get some that are a little bit off. You know, it's not a big deal. Doesn't affect functionality. From normal viewing and handling distance, you don't see it, but it is something worth noting. It would have been cool if this gap, I could swap it down here where you really wouldn't care that much about it. But moving on, liner lock. Now I know some of you are going to say, I hate liner locks. I don't trust liner locks. I'm never going to be able to convince you otherwise, I don't think. There's benefits to liner locks. There's nice things about liner locks. Everything doesn't have to be a frame lock. For one thing, it means that your fingers will not get in the way of the action. You cannot have issues deploying this knife because you're pressing on that lock bar. And depending on the design of the knife and the size of your hands, sometimes that can be just mildly annoying, or sometimes it can be a deal breaker. I've had knives where I literally just cannot deploy the thing effectively and comfortably because of that reason. So depending, it can be a big deal. The other thing is, you know, visually it's just nice, right? You don't have like this frame lock kind of in the way here, messing up with your inlays. It creates a nice symmetrical view on both sides. It makes it nice and even, nice and sturdy and strong. And honestly, I feel liner locks can be just as strong as frame locks. I think a lot of the hype behind frame locks being stronger is just really an illusion, right? It's not really stronger. They see the thickness of it. Oh, look how thick it is. But it still comes down to the geometry of the lock face. And most locks fail with shock pushing it out of the way. And it doesn't matter how thick it is. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. If your geometry isn't right, it's going to kick this out and it's going to kick this out. Doesn't matter. So that's what's important. And the reason I'm bringing that up is this thing is probably the most solid liner lock I've experienced in a long time, especially one that isn't relying on like titanium stick, right? So like Emerson's can have a very solid lock. Some of that is because it's stuck, right? It's got that stick and it's kind of using that to hold things in place. This is a steel lock bar, so there's no stick. It's not going to wear out, but it doesn't budge. And what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of knives will have a little bit of movement. This one's also very, very good. They'll have a little bit of movement, you know, and it might be flex. It might be the lock bar kind of just flexing a little bit. This is a thin piece of steel or titanium, and sometimes it will flex on you just a little bit, or you might be slipping a tad. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fail or cause a major issue. But usually, you know, having a knife that kind of has a little bit of wiggle or slip is kind of like, it happens. And I've experienced it a lot lately with liner locks and frame locks. This one is so solid. I can't, it almost feels bizarre because I expect it to like flex a little. Like I am cranking on it and it is not moving at all. So super, super good job on the lock geometry on this thing. It is outstanding. And the other thing I want to mention that really kind of blew me away is the chamfering on the inside of the scales here. Look at all of that chamfering. You can get in here. It is so comfortable to unlock this thing. One of my pet peeves with knives is when it feels like you're barely getting into this lock bar relief. Like your thumb might slip, like maybe you're just barely catching the edge and you're like, man, I think it's fine, but it doesn't feel right. It feels a little bit off. And this thing is executed so well. It's even got chamfering on the inside of that inset liner right there, which, I mean, I guess this is more of an inset liner as opposed to a liner lock. I think I called it a liner lock earlier, although I don't know. This one kind of bends the rules because you can see how the steel is inset in the entire frame right there. And then it's got lightning holes in it as well. So very interesting. Normally when you have a steel inset liner like this, it's just the liner that's inset and then they screw like right here. This actually is inset throughout the whole thing. So it is completely robust because it's being held together by the whole knife as opposed to just having a couple screws holding the liner in there. So very, very cool. But big ups on the design here for being able to get, I mean, I've got big, meaty, thick monster thumbs and I can get in here no problem. Everything else is great. Centering's great. There's no detent, slop, nothing like that. Pocket clip, wire pocket clip. I generally avoid wire pocket clips. I think they're cheap. I think they're ugly. However, that being said, they're extremely effective. Very, very nice. Very well done. Goes right into the pocket. Tons of tension on here. Now, you can buy a milled titanium pocket clip from Knife Standards. So they are available. I mean, they should be available on the site. They were available on the site. I can't guarantee like right now, Saturday, that they're on the site available. But he did produce them. So if you really want a titanium milled pocket clip, you can buy one of those. Now, my original plan was to do that, but for other reasons, I can't really do that right now. So I am sticking with the wire clip. And I'm surprised at how well it works. I think they're ugly. I think they look cheap, but they work really, really well. Like it's actually really, really nice and they keep the weight down. Very simple design. You've got a standoff down here, holds the bottom together. And then you got the pivot right there. And when I got this and I had been playing with it, this actually loosened up quite a bit. And the thing I want to note about this knife is that when this loosened up, I had some play this way. That's how I noticed it was loose. Like I could squeeze it and it would be like, you know, squeeze this way. Zero play this like laterally, zero play laterally. Meaning the machining on this is so precise that this is literally just sandwiching this together. This is not responsible for any play up or down. This thing was running, like the only reason I noticed it is I would kind of notice a little bit of like a click sometimes. And I'm like, what is that? But in terms of like the action and the detent, nothing fell out of place with this being loose. And of course I just tightened it up and we're good to go. More than likely it's just from, you know, shipping and then handling it. It was just a little bit loose, happens, not a big deal. Pocket clip, by the way, is reversible. You can see right there, it's got the milled pieces. So left hand, right hand, you can carry this. Deployment works left hand, right hand. The only thing for you lefties would be, you know, disengaging left-handed, which if you're a true knife bro, you do that anyways when you're just fidgeting. You use your left hand. I do it all the time. Not a problem at all. Knife Standards RR3. There's a reason this video is 15 minutes long because I'm very impressed with this. I'm very impressed with the features, Very impressed with the aesthetics and the design details of it. Now, obviously, this might not be for you. It is kind of more aesthetic first, right? It's not a rough and tumble bare bones knife. Oh, I didn't even talk about the finish. It's got an interesting finish. I don't know if I'm completely on board. It's kind of an orange peelish type thing, but it doesn't seem to be executed as well as it could. Maybe it's because it's on these flat planes. Just seems a little off. So I'm kind of torn on that. On one hand, I like it because it's different than what you typically see. On the other hand, I don't know if I completely love it. I think I may have preferred just a blasted titanium would look kind of classic and classy, whether it's bead blasted or Zer blasted or sand blasted. Maybe I would have liked that more. It would have darkened up the handle too to provide some more contrast. Who knows? Who knows? I'd have to look at it. Everybody's different. I do appreciate it being something on the we don't see as much anymore. Orange peel isn't done that much, especially on production knives, so I appreciate that. I just don't know if it completely works here. And it's a little inconsistent. You can see how it's much stronger of a finish on these parts, but on the flats, you can barely even tell that it has it. But that's nitpicking, like very, very small, right? And that's the thing, because I know people will comment on the videos where I talk like this, and they're like, why are you obsessing over these little details? And what that means, if you see a video from me reviewing a knife and I'm talking about little tiny details like that, what that means is the knife is a straight up banger. Because if I'm going down to that level where I'm talking about finishes and little tiny mini gaps on the inlays, that means there's no other real issues to talk about and I have to go down to that level. So it's a good thing. If you see reviewers nitpicking on small things, that's good. That means the knife is good. If they're talking about lockup issues and action issues and blade shape problems, not good, right? Not good. They're probably not even going to get down to this level because there's bigger issues and bigger things to talk about. So, all right, guys, appreciate it if you hung out this long. I will catch you guys on the next video. Take care. I'm out.